Good evening, Bat fans. Luke here, ready to do this week's Bat Chat session with y'all, where we take a look at this week's Batman-related books that were released. And let's see, going over, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, 7. 7 Batman books to talk to tonight, so let's go ahead and get this started so this video doesn't go too entirely long. We're going to start with Batman issue number 10, which is I Am Suicide Part 2. And I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm really digging this I Am Suicide story. Now, issue number 10 in particular, I'm going to say this is going to sound kind of like a negative in tone, but in reality, it's really not. Not a whole lot happened in here. Whereas the first issue, you get a lot of intrigue as Batman going through Arkham to pick his team to go and invade Santa Prisca. This one, this I don't want to say, the pace of the story slows down dramatically, and but I think kind of like the big part in this issue is that we find out a lot more of the back history with Catwoman, and actually it was a pretty good Catwoman-centric week this week. Not only does that she have a part in this story, but also we had a one-shot that we'll talk about here in just a few moments. But yeah, that's the big thing we find out, but also it's more of how bad a place Santa Prisca can be. And if you read Vengeance of Bane, I think it's even, if you can't get the one shot, there's actually a trade. Actually, I got it. That's how I read it. Batman versus Bane, I believe. Or is it boy, anyway, there's a trade that collects the one shot with a couple other Bane related stories. But if you read that, you obviously Bane in general, Santa Prisca, not really a good place. And in this issue, what basically happens is Batman makes this assault on Santa Prisca to get Psycho Pirate, and in doing so, first off, he does attempt to fight the we'll just call it the Santa Prisca Armed Forces. He runs in the Air Force and actually runs an encounter with the Army as he makes his aerial assault with the Batwing into the island. But he does get captured and makes a encounter with Bane. And what Bane actually does, I thought, was entirely clever. He actually throws him in the same hellhole, if you would, that Bane did for 17 years. And a lot of the issue, as far as the artwork is concerned, is Batman kind of fighting through being imprisoned and making his way out. Ultimately, I mean, spoiler, he does make his way out. It was sort of a ruse, as where you think it's actually Batman kind of wanted to get captured, so he can make his way out and actually let the other members of his team in. But again, I think the big part of the issue is the Catwoman. We find more of the backstory about Catwoman. We had the cliffhanger and mentioned her killing over 200 people, and you're wondering what the heck happened. Well, you do get an answer in this issue. Something I hope they kind of flesh out a little more. It deals with her and her time in a foster home, which was actually destroyed by terrorists. And I'm not going to spoil really what happened, but it's kind of like her vengeance was kind of like the corollary that caused those 200 so deaths that she put on death row for. So, but that's pretty much the story. I must say the artwork inside by Mikhail Janin was just absolutely beautiful. And it was just a beautiful book to look at. And I like how it was actually written, in that there wasn't too much current day dialogue. A lot of it believe it or not, was Batman threatening Bane. I think he said like 3 or 4 times at least, "Hey, I'm here for Psycho Pirate. Let him go, or I will break your back." So other than that, it was really just like journal entries of Selena, kind of talking about also what happened with her in the foster home, and kind of her corollary with the foster home was the Thomas and Martha Wayne foster home for kids, and kind of more of the Wayne family. So it was interesting in how it was written. But again, Janin just knocked it out of the park. This is a beautiful book to look at. But if I had to really knock it, it would mainly be because not much happened in this. But that said, I think that's not really a bad thing when I say knock it. So I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5, but it was a very good 3.5 out of 5. Obviously, I forgot to mention that we got the Tim Sale variant, and that's the standard cover for that. So, next book we're going to take a look at is Nightwing issue number 8, which I was kind of surprised. This was actually the end of the Rise of the Raptor story. It's just a quick, short 2-issue story arc. And I absolutely love this issue. A lot of it is just the fight and dialogue between Dick and Bruce. But we also get the reveal of what the tie was between Raptor and Dick's mother, going back to their time in the circus. And this was just awesomely written. You get a lot. I'm not saying a lot, but there is some tragedy that Raptor endured while their time in the circus, and you kind of seen it throughout the run in Nightwing, where Raptor kind of has this code of honor to him, and that's kind of referenced in this. And I'm not going to spoil really the corollary between what Raptor had to endure and how it was shared or related to Dick's mother. But when we have the constant theme of the Raptor being against the 1%, the elites that we kind of seen throughout the story, you see what happened to him before, and you're like, oh, I get it, But I thought it was beautifully woven between the past, what happened in the past, and the present day, and why really what Raptor just really has a disdain for Batman, especially as a mentor for Dick. And it was just beautifully crafted by Tim Seeley in this. You really feel engaged as you're reading this, as Dick's going off against Raptor. Bruce actually does get kind of put into a little bit of a death trap, which the symbolism with the silver spoon I thought was clever. And just overall, this was a fun issue. It's drama, it's action, and it's beautifully done. The art was great by Fernandez, and just overall just had a great tone to this story, and it was just really awesome. We have Tony the Tiger, not Tony the Tiger, but the Tiger for Agent. I always forget. Is he 0 or is he Agent 1? I forget. Agent 1, 3, or whatever. He makes an appearance at the end of this, and it was overall just a fun. I'm giving this a 4 out of 5. Nightwing was just absolutely awesome, and if I maybe would have. I don't want to say I'm going to cheat it, because it's still a 4 or 5. It was great. It did just come out of nowhere, the ending in this. And I know there was going to be a head-to-head clash between Dick and Raptor. But man, it They told a really good story. It was only like 2 issues, but that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. Not everything has to be grand in scope, but it was just really quick. But yeah, this was great. 4 out of 5. Awesome, awesome issue. Nightwing. Nightwing just continues to be just an awesome book. I don't normally review Superman on the title, but obviously with a cover like this, at least gotta mention it. Um, Superman issue number 10. This cover is just absolutely awesome. And if you're kind of curious, what are my thoughts on the Superman book thus far? I will say during the New 52, it was a tough read, to be perfectly honest. But it got a little better when Tomasi kind of picked up toward the end. We had the death of Superman. But the Rebirth Superman has been awesome since the Rebirth issue. And this issue, no different, was absolutely great. It just, you felt like you were back in the good old days of Batman and Robin Volume 2, the Tomasi Gleason run, and thrown in with a little bit of the Robin Son of Batman issue, because we have like a cameo of everybody pretty much. You get Maya here, obviously you get Damian, Bruce, Superman, John, Alfred, Batcow makes his appearance. Titus is there. The only one that was really missing, I think, was kind of like the main parts of the Batman and Robin run with Tomasi and Gleason. Obviously, it would have been Talia and Nobody Proper, but Nobody Proper ain't coming back anytime soon. Nothing's, no death is, for certain in comics. You never know I'll come back. But anyway, not going to go in depth in this other than to say this was an awesome issue. I'm going to give this a 3.5 out of 5. Just the interaction between Damian and John was awesome in this. And the restraint between Bruce and Superman to kind of not go over the edge, it was really good, and you're starting to see a bond kind of develop between the two. So, 3.5 out of 5, Superman issue number 10. Man, this cover is awesome. Was a very awesome issue. Superman also continued to be just an enjoyable book. Justice League issue number 8. Down goes the Watchtower. Basically, what happens in this is not really a complex story. Is Cyborg somewhat gets hacked through his system, which we kind of saw this through when we had the story with the Kindred. This story actually kind of picks up toward the end of the Kindred, the first story arc. So I don't know what, if any, the short 2-story arc had with the Fear portion of the Justice League had any impact at all as far as continuity in the series, but this is kind of continues on toward the aftermath of the Kindred, and so Cyborg gets hacked, and then basically, this does kind of mention, because it continues, when Superman attacked Batman in the Batcave, which did happen in a 2-issue story arc with the Fear thing. So basically, Bruce is rebuilding the defenses in the Batcave because of Superman coming to attack him, just as we saw. I think that was issue number 7. Yeah, I think it was issue number 7, the issue before. And his system gets attacked as well. It's like cyber hacked. And basically, it's Batman and Alfred trying to save themselves from all the vehicles and weapon platforms they got in the Batcave, as well as Cyborg dealing with his hack as well. And that's pretty much the issue. They're gonna find out who's doing all this hacking stuff. Overall, it wasn't bad. I like how Hitch is now weaving the stories together, so you get a good continuity feel throughout the stories of Justice League. I'm still saying it's not as good as the Jeff Johns run, but that said, this wasn't bad. I thought the art by Edwards, while it wasn't Tony S. Daniels, was still pretty good. Very similar in style, and overall, it was a pretty good read. I will say that. 3 out of 5 for Justice League issue number 8. Next book we're going to take a look is Harley Quinn issue number 7, which wraps up this part of the story arc of Undercover Punker. And basically what we find out is that we had issue number 6. The cliffhanger was that Harley was going to this club. It was kind of like a superhero villain fetish club where people go and they, pretend to be, as you see in the cover, Power Girl, Joker, whatnot. And I will say the innuendos get pushed to the edge here. At one point, I thought they were gonna go to a sex room. Harley and the 2 bandmates that she's trying to infiltrate a little bit, but we find out this club's actually owned by Penguin, and Penguin finds out, hey, as he's talking to one of the bandmates that is unaware of Harley being who she is. Cobblepot's like, yeah, you idiot, you brought Harley here. In addition to that, we'll just say that Harley gets her bar of soap back. That one that had, Harley, our Joker loves Harley on it. That the one that the girl obviously stole from Arkham. And in addition to that, Red Tool's in here. I love Red Tool. Red Tool is just an awesome character. But we find out what happened with Red Tool and Little Tony, what they're going on, what's happening with them, with the other bandmates, and all kind of meshes together toward the end. Actually, yeah, the guy, bandmate, they both die. Yeah, I think they both die. I can't remember for sure if the girl died or not. I can't remember. Read this book on Wednesday. But either way, the ones that Harley was messing with the club, they're both dead. Cobblepot kills them, and the other 2 get kind of arrested. So the whole thing with the people who we find out actually why they actually killed the mailman in the first place is because, hey, they were actually stealing people's online orders, and it's just a casualty of war, whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, Harley, it sounds like I'm kind of down on this, and it's not. I mean, Harley's just one of these books that's nothing's going to be epic in scope and grandiose. It's just one where it's just like you read it for what it is, you get a chuckle. And it kind of continued that theme. I'm going to give it 3 out of 5. It was a typical Harley book. Again, the innuendos were getting kind of pushed to the limits. We'll say that. So, but it was a fun time. Harley Quinn issue number 7, 3 out of 5. Next book we're going to take a look at is Batman 66 meets Steed and Mrs. Peel. This is issue number 5 of 6, the penultimate issue of this miniseries, and basically pretty simple issue. We have, make sure I remember the team ups. We had Steed and Batman going up against Mr. Fogg. Yes. And then we had Mrs. Peel and Robin going up with Mr. Freeze as they are kind of infiltrating. I can't remember the main antagonist in this story. The female that Bruce actually had a little bit of a love interest in the beginning of the story. As they're trying to infiltrate her to bring her down, the gang gets kind of separated. We're obviously in England. And there was actually both kind of traps. They both actually came across the same thing. Basically a bottomless, or not really bottomless, a floor that kind of, the bottom got kind of taken out of it, where they actually fell into a trap. One has liquid nitrogen. I think that was Robin, and I forget what Batman and them were running into with Mr. Fogg. But basically they both kind of get their way out of their trap, working together. But as it looks like They're going to defeat their nemesis. They get the groups together in one room, and then they actually gets trapped. Where we had those androids before, now these are kind of like female-looking robots that they're gonna try to take them out. It is what it is. This was okay. I thought this was better. Issue number 3 was a downer. I remember that. And issue number 4, I don't think I even reviewed. Came in late anyway. And issue number 4 was pretty good, but I think this issue, it definitely brought it up a little bit, because issue number 3 I thought was pretty rough. And it was good. It had all the typical Batman 66 humor you'd expect, even in the air, as you know, the Batcopter is chasing down this jet that our main antagonist got. It was overall had a very good feel to it. The thing of the art is just, I'm not really a fan of the art inside. I can't remember who does the art. Dial Smith, whatever. Yeah, it just had throughout this whole entire series so far, this mini-series, it's just been, I don't want to say lazy, because that's not what I mean. It's very rough. It's not a very polished art, and the colors too, it just looks a little rushed and not as polished and kind of simple. But still, this was a fun issue. 3 out of 5 for Batman 66 meets Steed and Mrs. Peel, penultimate. And I like how they're doing these 66 issues now. Is that when the main series they had, I think it was issue 30, I think, kind of wrapped up, and then we had Batman 66 meets the Man from U.N.C.L.E., and then we had meets the Steed and Mrs. Peel, and then next we got the one I'm really looking forward is the Wonder Woman 77. I'm kind of liking how we're getting these short 6-issue minis of the Batman 66 series, and this is good. I'm having a good time, even though issue number 3 kind of made it rough. This is still turned out to be pretty good, and we're gonna wrap up with Catwoman. Election Night, issue number 1. This is the one-shot, and I'm going to be honest, I kind of miss not having Catwoman regularly in the reading. I really did enjoy, oh boy, what was her name? It's not a good thing. We had Selena as a mob boss. That run of Catwoman. And then even I thought the issue number 50 and 51, 52 and beyond, whatever, I thought that was actually pretty fun. But I'm missing having Catwoman regularly. I'm sure she's going to come back at some point. So, but it was nice to have Catwoman again. And just, it was perfectly timed, a election-centric story with Catwoman here. And this story is actually it is a 2-story split, with the main story being the one about Catwoman, and the backup being about Prez, with everything from birth control and weapons control possibilities. And I will say, believe it or not, they're actually blended. I'm not going to spoil too much in this. The two kind of blend together. But basically what the first story is that there is a mayoral race going on with this one female individual who Selena spent some time with in a foster home. Kitty's house, I believe is what they called it. And she's going up against Oswald Cobblepot. And much like if you're reading Gotham, the kind of feel that Cobblepot has in that kind of campaign is very similar to what you're going to get in this. But yeah, the girl that's run up against him, who Selena spent some time with in the foster care system, is definitely not in the up and up. There was actually a murder that occurred back when they were children, and again, I'm not going to spoil too much about it, but it was actually a really good story. Um, and again, it plays itself out. You do see a Batman cameo in this, as Selina is kind of doing her investigation of saying, what's the interest with Cobblepot in this building that he's trying to take down as part of his election campaign. And Cobblepot is very much portrayed kind of like the stance, the same thing as Donald Trump. He talks about building a wall around Gotham, and you kind of get the feel that the two candidates we got going on present day were kind of influences in the story in here. But again, it's the two stories do merge, and we will say at the cliffhanger at the end of the main story is kind of like the segue into the Prez story, which, again, at first I was like, what the heck, this cliffhanger? I was like, what? Really? No, it's not really a cliffhanger. Let me take that back. The ending, the last panel of the story, last page. But again, then you get in the backup story, you're like, oh, okay. So, but the art in this was very good. Russell, I think. Yeah, I can't remember for sure. The art inside was really nice. I thought Meredith Finch wrote the main story. I know many of my compadres here are not really a fan of Meredith Finch, but I will say it was pretty good. I thought she did a pretty decent job on this. As far as the writing and the dialogue, it all felt like a good Selina Kyle story, and her kind of putting her to detective work in, and the whole murder and kind of how things kind of laid out, and kind of the female candidates' motives. It all got woven really nicely, and yeah. And I should kind of take that back when I say both stories kind of merge. They don't really necessarily merge, but it just segues really good from the first story and ends and how it ends and who it ends with, and then going into the backup story. It all kind of merges in really nice. And the backup story is actually good too. Not really too much. I haven't really read too much about Prez before, but I will say this kind of pushed the envelope as far as the topic they were talking about, but I like how she got her way in the end. We'll just kind of leave it that way. I'm gonna give this a 3.5 out of 5. That said, this was, I don't think, worth $4.99. I think that was a little excessive. It's a lot. It's a big book. It's thick, so you get the content. I just don't see this being very memorable. I don't think a lot of people are going to be talking about this a year from now. With this being a dollar bins, probably. At some point. That said, I'm going to recommend it, but I'm going to say don't kill yourself to go get it. Because this is just a fun read type of thing. It's definitely going to throw you off. It's not, I don't think, in any way in continuity with what we just read in Batman issue number 10. As you read this, you're like, obviously, I don't think so. So, especially we're talking about the death of the 200 people, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But that said, it was fun. Get it. Again, however, if you don't have the money, don't break your bank. It's at some point somewhere, get it, read it, because it's just a fun read. So, 3.5 out of 5. Yeah, fair enough. So, anyway, those were this week's books. I did get the new Batman animated movie, the Batman 66 centric story, Return of the Caped Crusaders, I believe. I'm going to try watching it. The Penguins game is on right now. Penguins playing San Jose is actually intermission, so I'm going to watch that, and if I can stay up, probably be at 2 o'clock by the time this game is over. Try to watch that tonight. If not, maybe we get to it tomorrow, and maybe put my thoughts out there. It'll be a quick video. So anyway, until next week, take care, everybody.